Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Giannono. I'm a composer and writer and producer of the single Silly Girl, which was recorded in Nashville, Tennessee, with singer Brandon Maddox and the Reba McEntire Band. And by the way, Brandon Maddox was just named Monster Truck Artist of the Year and has an incredible United States tour beginning this January. So he's on his way right about now. Sitting beside me is Sandra Kilsby, who is the production coordinator of the project, and she's here to help me keep things moving along in an intelligent fashion. So, Sandra?
Well, I certainly hope so, Joe. We're here on behalf of the entire Silly Girl team, and we would like to invite you to join with us to help us produce a great music video of Silly Girl, which is a single that's going to be released in, I believe, around June this year.
Wedding season.
Yeah, and Joe's going to tell us a little bit more about that later. Joe, you've had a rather illustrious career. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your career?
Okay, well, I spent most of my career for many, many years behind the scenes in the music business. I was an arranger and orchestrator for a lot of Broadway shows, and I'm still involved in the theater, and lots of recordings and all kinds of things. But I'm still involved in the theater. I'm the resident composer of the White Horse Theater Company. I've written a musical called The Hunchback of Notre Dame, written with renowned lyricist Hal Hackaday, who is internationally known for writing Snoopy, Teddy and Alice, Good Time Charlie, Minnie's Boys, and least of not which, he wrote the Mets theme, the Let's Go Mets slogan. A lot of people don't know that. I've also written, I'm writing a children's musical and that, but over the years I've worked for many, many people, including Cheetah Rivera, PM Dawn, Paul Taylor, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind and Fire. I did the British Rock Symphony with Roger Daltrey and Ann Wilson of Heart. We even worked with Procol Harum on that project. By the way, Procol Harum was named after a cat. I just found that out. I've also worked with many, many great jazz artists like Bucky Pizzarelli, Michelle Camillo, and Gene Bertoncini, and certainly all the major symphony orchestras. Anyway, I've done just about everything in the music business, but I like to say that by the time I got to Woodstock, I was a decent guitar player. And then came music school.
Joe, Silly Girl is such an infectious tune. Why don't you tell our viewers what the inspiration was for writing this song?
Okay. Well, I was walking down the street one day, and I saw this little girl who's a ballerina standing on the corner with her mother. And she was dancing these ballet moves and holding an ice cream in her hand at the same time. And she was acting very silly about it. And it made me think of the time when I was in Pennsylvania with Sandra at her mother's place. We were about to have breakfast, and Sandra was missing. She couldn't be found. So her father yells out, Whitey says, "Where's Sandra?" So her mother looks out the window and says, "There she is." And we all noticed when we looked out the window that there is Sandra hanging by her legs, upside down, on the branch of a tree about 8 feet up in the air. She was very athletic, and this wasn't too long ago, like a drunken koala bear. And she puts out her hands like this, upside down, mind you, which I can't do here. She goes, "Good morning." So anyway, I was walking down the street, and this little tune came to me, and it wouldn't go away. So I went home and wrote it down, and I just had a little fragment at this point, and this is the tune. What about it, silly girl? And oh, it would be so nice. And that was it. That's all I had. And so I kept coming back to it because I just couldn't let it go. It was very infectious. And about a year lapsed, and I got the rest of it done. And then I sat down a couple of days later and actually wrote the rest of the song, the choruses, etc. And over the next course of a couple of days or whatnot, I finished the lyrics and got those the way I wanted them to. And that's basically how it happened.
And I had absolutely no idea that I was the inspiration. So be careful what you do.
Yes, it can get you in a lot of trouble someday.
Joe, why don't you tell our viewers how you chose Brandon Maddox?
This is fun. Yeah, I was looking for a singer. Once I finished the song, I was looking for a singer to sing it. So I tried out a few people, and everybody was stiff. It wasn't working right. And the way I was singing it with this kind of country charm. So it occurred to me, I should probably get someone who's more of a country singer to add that boyish quality, because it's basically about a guy who's in love with his girlfriend. He wants to marry her. So anyway, so I remembered Brandon Maddox, who we had met. Sandra and I had both met him at a function downtown, maybe a year prior to that, and Sandra is keeping in touch with him. They become friends. So I asked Sandra to send him the song and see if he liked it. Sure enough, he liked the song. So now our problem became, how do we get this thing done? And by the way, Silly Girl is a wedding song, a.k.a. also known as an epithalamium, which this word no one knows. That's the Greek Latin term for a wedding song, and which is why we're going to release it in June of this year for wedding season. So that's how it came about, and that's how I got Brandon to do it.
Joe, Nashville, as the viewers will know, is the music capital of the country. And you chose Nashville to record Silly Girl. Can you tell our viewers why you picked Nashville as opposed to New York City, where you're located?
Yeah. Well, as described to me by my mastering engineer, Nashville is a drinking town with a music problem, which is my kind of town.
Oh,
so anyway,
great.
we were ready to record the song sometime last year in June. I got Brandon on board. And the way it worked out, after speaking to Brandon, bringing him up here with his crazy schedule was next to impossible. So we figured it'd be far easier for me and far more practical to go to Nashville. So at that point, we had the issue of how we're going to get the band in the studio. So I called up Brandon. Well, first of all, so I called up a couple of friends. I called up my friend Billy Falcon, who is Bon Jovi's writing partner, and my friend Tony Gracci down there, who is an active musician, working a lot. And I asked them, about how do I get a band? You got some people I can call? You got a studio? Anyway, it turned out to be too many pieces to put together. So I called Brandon back. I said, Brandon, you got to help me here. I need to find, you got a band that you like working with? Because I need to just do everything much simpler. So Brandon said, yeah, I just work with Doug Sizemore, who is Reba McEntire's musical director. So I said, well, give me his number. So I called Doug, and it was fantastic. Doug was able to book me the studio. He got all the musicians, one-stop shopping as far as I'm concerned, exactly what I wanted. And then Sandra did all the scheduling, the flight stuff, and the logistics, and all I had to do was show up and do the music, which suited me just fine. So anyway, Doug Sizemore booked the legendary Quad Studios. Everybody in the world recorded there, like Elvis, George Strait, the band, Dolly Parton, Taylor Swift, you name it. The Night They Drove Dixie Down was recorded there. Neil Young recorded Heart of Gold exactly in the spot where we were recording, which is quite a humbling experience. And the band itself is incredible. I mean, we had Doug Sizemore on piano.
So fantastic.
Jeff King on lead guitar, Jim Kibble on rhythm guitar, who had this 1890s, he called a Hannibal Hector guitar. It was a small guitar, almost as small as my ukulele, which was used for a double high part, which is magical. And then we had Mark Hill, one of Nashville's great bass players, Tommy Harden on drums, and I played ukulele, organ, electric piano, and the chimes, as in wedding. And we also had a great engineer, Mark Lonsway, who was a sweetheart. And as backup singers, we had Kim Parent, Vicki Hampton, Robert Bailey. These are all top of the line. And I think they're actually Dolly Parton's backup singer group. And it was so much fun. And everything was done on such a high professional level. It was magic. And speaking of high level, the reason we're here is we want to do the music video on an equally high level as the recording of the track itself. So...
Well, music videos are very expensive to produce, and because of the recording being with such professional musicians, and as Joe said, on such a high level, there are going to be a great deal of cost involved in producing an equally important and professional music video. So, Joe, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the cost and that will explain to them why we're asking for their help and assistance in contributing money.
Yeah, very good point. Something I'm totally I never even think about.
Anyway,
there's lots of costs. I mean, you got the cost of a cast, you got a video crew, equipment, the shoot itself, editing, location, transportation. I mean, you got to buy people lunch and stuff. You're going to keep them out all day. We got to find a location, which probably get somebody a location scout to find us a great like church and whatnot.
Choreographer.
Because it's supposed to look like the Yellow Brick Road kind of thing. Anyway, all that, you can imagine how expensive it is. So all the costs that will be outlined in the documentation that's going to be included in this whole presentation. So that's how approximately what the costs are going to go for.
When do you plan to release the song? You mentioned June, which is around the time of weddings.
Yeah.
Is there any other reason why you've decided to select June?
Well, I chose June because, like I said, it's a wedding song, also known as an epithallium, and I figured it'd be perfect to release the single during wedding season. So, wedding season, in June 2014 it is.
If you as a viewer decide to contribute to our project, we have some wonderful gifts that we'd like to mention to you. Most of them, all of them will be listed in our program. But Joe, why don't you tell them about some of the more special gifts that we will give to our contributors?
Okay, well, as Sandra mentioned, there's a lot of gifts on different levels. Probably the biggest ticket item is, I'm told Brandon is willing to give a personal performance in your home. Now, we haven't worked it out yet, but that will probably be an option. And Brandon's becoming very popular these days. He's really come up in the ranks. He's a fantastic artist, touring all over the place. Anyway, in addition to all that stuff, I have videos of the complete trip to Nashville, which will give you a sense of getting on the plane in New York and coming back from the Nashville to New York on the plane. We travelogue the whole section. The sound effect of the plane is fantastic. Did you plan this? Anyway, we also have, and this is very special, a video of the entire excerpt from the entire recording session. So it will be as if you were there with us. You'll see all the goofing around with me and Billy Falcon and Brandon and Meredith and everybody there, and it was so much fun. And also you'll get recordings at different stages. You'll get the actual audio recording of me doing the original demo, which I gave to Brandon, which is in totally different keys, sometimes in different feeling spots, and it's all got. And you'll of course get the final version. So you'll get all that great stuff as contributors. So on behalf of everyone involved with the Silly Girl team, we just want to thank you for joining us and helping us make a fantastic music video for the single of Silly Girl. So thank you.
Thank you so much for watching.